Taoiseach, you are facing an autumn of discontent in this country when it comes to your failure and the failure of successive Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael governments to address the housing crisis that we face. This morning, the Raise the Roof Coalition was meeting to discuss dates for a major demonstration before the budget. The National Housing and Homelessness Coalition has already set a date for a demonstration on the date of the reopening of the Dáil. And as a member of the Budget Scrutiny Committee, I can tell you my concern and the urgency of building those protests to demand public and affordable housing and protections for renters have been greatly strengthened by the reports we had this morning about the summary economic statement. We were due to meet the Minister of Finance tomorrow morning. We're now not sure if that is going to happen to discuss the summary economic statement because it's being reported there is a row in government about the amount of money that is going to be allocated for housing and debates about reducing deficits as against housing expenditure. Now, I want to be helpful, okay? Although, in fact, we've been very helpful over many, many years. I just thought I'd bring them in. I flicked through them. Our pre-budget submissions. 2021, People for Profit submission. Called for $4 billion additional expenditure in housing. 2020, $4 billion additional in housing expenditure. 2019, $4 billion additional in housing expenditure. 2018, $4 billion addition in housing expenditure, a figure that now the ESRI precisely are calling for. We also had the Raise the Roof demonstration, which People Before Profit put a motion into this Dáil, which was passed on behalf of that coalition, calling for a doubling of the expenditure on public and affordable housing. In addition, by the way, controls on rents and action to be taken on vacant properties in this country. So we have set forward the demands. We have put forward figures as to what should be spent on public and affordable housing year after year after year, figures that are now being endorsed by the ESRI, and your government still fails to do it, and if the reports are true, are still rowing about saying, oh, maybe that's too much, maybe we've got a deficit problem, right? We have a much bigger problem. We have a dire housing and homelessness crisis. But you see, there is a very simple solution to this. We are currently spending in excess of €1 billion on HAPs, RAS and leasing arrangements. €1 billion down the drain into the pockets of vulture funds, landlords, property investors and so on. That €1 billion is supporting 100,000 tenancies of people mostly in insecure HAPs, RAS and other leasing accommodation which could be pulled from them by these vulture funds and landlords at any time. There's a very simple solution. Invest the $4 billion a year that we need to deliver 20,000 public and affordable houses every year for the next 5 years. We will save all that money and we will own the property at the end of it. People will have secure tenancies and homes, and in fact we will generate revenue for the state with the rental revenue that will be coming back to us instead of into the pockets of landlords and vulture funds.
Please, Taoiseach.
Yeah, could I just say to the Deputy, first of all, by the way, 86% of landlords own 1 to 2 properties. And we lost about 3,870 landlords went out of the market in 2020, by the way. So it's a contracting market. Supply is the key. You can't take $1 billion out of HAP tomorrow morning. You know that, Deputy. It's easy. It's not that simple. There are tenancies tied up in HAP, the Housing Assistance Programme, for many years now. You just can't simply replace that overnight or pretend you can, and I don't think you should suggest that. Nor can you do it over the next 2 years or 3 years, but you can. I will accept the more we build, the less reliance on HAP and the less reliance on other forms of current funding that the state is currently engaged in terms of rents. So we want to build. I agree with you, we want to build more social housing. I said earlier, the issue will not be resources in the context of the summer economic statement. There's no row. The issue will not be resources. The issue will be delivery across the system in terms of getting more houses built, both in the public sector, in terms of social housing, in the affordable, where the state will become involved and is involved through the Land Development Agency and other avenues through local authorities in terms of service sites funds, for example, where the state is investing very significantly, an initiative that the Minister has undertaken in that respect. So the state is the biggest actor now in terms of housing. 3.3 billion this year alone. So the issue will not be resources, it will be delivery on the ground. And we need supply. This year, we'll be looking to get to 18,000. Obviously, COVID has had an impact. It's taken about 5,000 to 6,000 out of in terms of what would have been built. Likewise, last year. So in the last number of years, we haven't been at the level of house construction that we need to be. And COVID clearly has interrupted the momentum around house building. But we can get it back. And all energies now are focused on getting more houses built. If we get more houses built, we can ease pressures on the rent market. I think the Minister's initiative in terms of limiting the increases in rent to inflation is a significant one and will make a difference over time as well. But key to this, in my view, is getting the number of houses built in this country significantly up by the state and by the private sector, by the way, and by the private sector as well. That needs to happen. And we need far more houses built than currently are being built. And that means building up capacity. It means getting skills back into the construction area and using every possible avenue available to us to get more state houses, social houses built, affordable houses built across the board. And we're up for that as a government. That's what we want to do. And the issue would be one of delivery. And again, across local authorities, people will have to swallow hard and vote for projects, even if they don't measure up to the purity of your own particular position on a given project.
Deputy Boyd Barrett.
The misguided, ill-fated Rebuilding Ireland programme to solve the housing crisis put forward by Fine Gael and Labour projected 87,000 HAPS, RAS and leasing tenancies. A disastrous plan that has left us reliant on vulture funds and so on to deliver housing. And of course, they've not delivered. That's not their job. Their job is to make money and charge extortionate rents. But that target was bad enough. But you know what we're up to now in terms of HAPS, RAS and leasing? 91,000, not including some of the AHB leasing. So probably around 100,000, higher even than the mad target set under Rebuilding Ireland, completely reliant on vulture funds, corporate landlords and so on. Now, of course, you can't pull the rug on all of that immediately. We're not suggesting that. What we are saying is your targets are not ambitious enough. Your target is for 12,000. By the way, last year, local authorities and AHBs only built 4,000, just over 4,000 purchased or built. They didn't even build them all. And for next year, it's 12,000. Even the ESRI is now saying that is not enough, and that you need to double the expenditure in order to get it up to about 19,000. We would say go a bit further, but it's in the right ballpark. So you're not committing to it, and we hear there's a row at Cabinet about the expenditure levels. So this is the problem, that you're not actually putting the resources forward and you don't have the targets to deliver. And by the way, you could, in the meantime, impose rent controls and stop evictions that are no-fault evictions or economic evictions, putting people into homelessness.
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach, please.
Well, the Minister has brought in rent controls in given areas and looked after people who had been vulnerable in respect of rent, and he's brought in new legislation to restrict rent increases. You know that. But you've summed it up yourself. It's not about resources. Of course it is, resources matter. But you're going on about a billion here and a billion there. It's about delivery, Deputy, is the point I'm making. That's going to be the big challenge. I say another 4 billion or whatever. It's about getting the capacity into our system to build more houses than we're currently building. That's the key. That local authorities will have the capacity to build more social houses because they will have the resources to build more social houses. That funding will be allocated to local authorities. The challenge for local authorities on housing will be to get those houses built to the targets that we want them built. It's the easiest thing in the world for you to stand up and say, let's do 20,000 next year. The capacity does not exist to do 20,000 social houses next year, to build them.
It doesn't exist.
It does not exist.
Stop building hotels. It does not exist right now.
Stop building hotels. What can happen, I think the more we build, yes, we do rely on HAP and RAS and so on like that.